This meeting will be conducted as a Zoom webinar to allow for public participation and comments. The Contra Costa Transportation Authority does not condone hate speech in any form. We continually strive to make life better for all members of our community and create an atmosphere where everyone feels a sense of safety and belonging. We ask
This
that anyone
meeting
who
will be
wishes to
conducted
speak
as a
does
Zoom
so with
webinar
civility,
to allow for
respect,
public participation and comments.
The Contra
Citizens
Costa
will have
Transportation
3 minutes to
Authority
speak.
does not condone hate
It is
speech in
requested
any
that
form.
public speakers state
We
their
continually
names
strive
and
to make life
organizations,
better for
but
all members of
providing
our
such
community
information is
and create an
voluntary.
atmosphere where
Citizens
everyone feels a
participating
sense
in
of
person
safety and
wishing to
belonging.
speak should
We
submit
ask
this
that anyone
meeting
who
will be
wishes to
conducted
speak
as a
does
Zoom
so with
webinar
civility,
to allow for
respect,
public participation
and
and
comments. The Contra Costa Transportation Authority does not condone hate speech in any form.
Public speakers
We
state their
continually
names
strive
and
to make life
organizations,
better for
but
all members of our
providing such
community
information is
and create an
voluntary.
atmosphere where
Citizens
everyone feels a sense of
participating in
safety and
person
belonging.
wishing to speak should
We
submit
ask
this
that
meeting
anyone
will
who
be
wishes to
conducted
speak
as a
does
Zoom
so with
webinar
civility,
to allow for
respect,
public participation
and
and
comments.
comments.
The Contra Costa Transportation Authority does not condone hate speech in any form. We continually strive to make life better for all members of our community and create an atmosphere where everyone feels a sense of safety and belonging. We ask
This
that
meeting
anyone
will
who
be conducted as a Zoom webinar to allow for public participation and comments.
The Contra Costa Transportation Authority does not condone hate speech in any form. We continually strive to make life better for all members of our community and create an atmosphere where everyone feels a sense of safety.
And no hate speech is tolerated. I got those two things out of the whole thing. Shall we try again? Maybe? No?
Bear with us. This is a fresh room, so it's the first time.
Yeah, I gotta go. If you want them up and go. They're right there, so it's not like you missed the meeting anyway.
This meeting will be conducted as a Zoom webinar to allow for public participation and comments. The Contra Costa Transportation Authority does not condone hate speech in any form. We continually strive to make life better for all members of our community and create an atmosphere where everyone feels a sense of safety and belonging. We ask that anyone who wishes to speak does so with civility, respect, and kindness for others. Citizens will have 3 minutes to speak. It is requested that public speakers state their names and organizations, but providing such information is voluntary. Citizens participating in person wishing to speak should submit a public speaker card to the clerk. Citizens participating by Zoom wishing to speak should use the raise hand feature or dial *9 if participating via phone, and the chair or staff will call upon them at the appropriate time. Written public comments received in accordance with the teleconferencing special notice on the meeting agenda will be provided to the members. If authors of the written correspondence would like to speak, they should raise their hand in Zoom or submit a public speaker card, and the chair will call upon them at the appropriate time. All written correspondence received after that and during the meeting will be entered into the record. Thank you for participating in a meeting of the Contra Costa Transportation Authority.
So much for a short video, huh? Thank you. Jackie, can you please conduct the roll call?
Yes, thank you, and apologies. Chair Sauce. Vice Chair Noack.
Here?
Commissioner Arnridge.
Here.
Commissioner Fideli.
Here.
Commissioner Hernandez Thorpe.
Here.
Okay, we have all commissioners present except for Chair Sauce absent.
Great, thank you. First item on the agenda is public comment. Is there anyone wishing to speak during public comment on an item that's not part of the agenda? If so, please submit a card or raise your virtual hand. Jackie, I don't see anybody here. Do we have
No cards
anybody online?
received and no virtual hands raised.
Okay, great. Now moving on to the consent calendar items. Are there any changes or comments from the committee? Does anyone, yes?
Yes,
Paul.
on item G, I just want to ask a question.
Okay,
So this is on what we were just talking about, how wonderful the room is here. The commission voted for a 250,000 goal for refurnishing our facilities. And now we're asked for an additional 1,000 the commission will be asked for. What was it why was the estimate so off, or what is the additional things that we do need?
We had additional change orders that came about in regards to the construction of the office, such as additional millwork in the copy room, electrical.
Millwork?
Millwork, like the
Woodwork.
cabinets.
Cabinets, okay.
And then we decided to change out the tiles. Many of them ended up being broken and couldn't be replaced, and that was quite expensive. So all the tiles have been replaced in both of the suites. And there's also additional change orders that we're expecting as well. Like there was a clean out that they found in the kitchen behind the wall that's going to have to be replaced. So there's additional things that we're trying to take into consideration. And then just the cost of furniture, labor has gone up as well. So with inflation, we did this.
Quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, we did this over a year ago, so it's affected the budget. So we're asking for an additional.
No new major reconfiguration. It's mainly changes, things that were discovered and additional.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, thank you.
I'd move the items then as presented.
okay,
I would second that.
great. We have an motion and a second. Jackie, please conduct the roll call vote.
Commissioner Arnridge.
Aye.
Commissioner Fideli.
Aye.
Commissioner Hernandez Thorpe.
Aye.
Vice Chair Noack.
Aye. I forgot public comment on that item. Is there any public comment? I don't see any public here, so,
None received, and I don't see any hands raised.
okay, great.
And the motion passes unanimously with Chair Sauce absent.
Great, thank you. We're now moving on to the regular agenda items. First item will be introduced by Lindy Johnson to provide an update on legislation at both state and federal levels.
Thank you and good morning. I'm happy to introduce Mark Watts, who's here to provide a state legislative update. Turning it over to you, Mark, who is here digitally. Okay, we'll keep working on that. In the meantime, we'll do the federal update, legislative update. Madeline Pike is here from Ty Ginsburg and Associates to provide.
Okay, hello, can you see me and hear me?
Yes, we can.
Excellent. Well, good morning and thanks for having me today to provide the federal update. Congress has been in recess since July, mostly due to campaigning, so there hasn't been that much congressional activity in August. But on the federal level, CCTA currently has 2 outstanding U.S. Department of Transportation grants and we expect both grant awards to be announced before the election. The first being a mega grant, which is the program used to fund major multimodal projects. CCTA is seeking $213 million for the Innovate 680 program to strengthen multimodal connections and give users some alternative transportation modes. And then the other grant is the Congestion Relief Program, which is administered by Federal Highways within the U.S. Department of Transportation. This is a new grant program, and it's the first round that FHWA is announcing grant awards for. So it's taking a little bit longer than expected, but FHWA did tell me that they should be coming out in September soon. So hopefully we'll have information about that shortly. But CCTA submitted a joint application with Caltrans, again for 680, but it's an adaptive ramp metering project, which would basically enhance safety and traffic efficiency. And that's expected to reduce vehicle collisions by 10%. And then the other big topic, I guess congressionally, federally, all of the above, is appropriations and government funding. The government funding expires September 30th, and a government shutdown would begin on October 1st unless a funding fix is passed before then, and both chambers agree to it, and it's signed by the president. It's expected that this will likely happen. And this is called a continuing resolution, which essentially is a stopgap funding mechanism just to avoid a government shutdown. The president, the administration just a few days ago released its priorities for a stopgap funding mechanism. So those include kind of just general social security staffing, veterans medical care, the WIC program, things like that. So we're hoping and expecting that during this short-term funding agreement that we believe will happen, Congress will return to compromising on their respective appropriations bills. And as a reminder, CCTA had two projects that were included in the House Transportation Appropriations Bill, and that includes a project that was submitted by Congressman Garamendi for the Antioch Park Ride-Shared Mobility Hub. And then additionally, Congressman DeSaulnier submitted the Smart Traffic Signals project between Antioch and Oakley, and that was included in the final House report as well. So Congress will basically come back for September and be working hopefully very hard, and there should be a flurry of activity before they break for the August recess again, which will be heavy campaigning season before the November election. So we'll be monitoring that, and we will be certainly, keeping an eye out for when USDOT makes these grant announcements and any progress that the Appropriations Committee in the House and Senate make, and hopefully, get the CCTA projects included in a final bill if that does go through. So that's basically it. Like I said, it's been kind of a slow month because it's been August recess, but I'm happy to answer any questions about kind of forecasts or anything like that. So thank you. And yeah, here to answer any questions.
Thanks, Madeline. Anybody have questions for Madeline? No? Yep. Thank you. Thank you, Madeline.
Thanks.
Is Mark here now?
Thank you, Madeline. I don't think Mark's going to be able to join us this morning, so I'm happy to provide just some really quick updates from the state legislative perspective. They did convene session on August 31st, so all bills that have moved forward are on the governor's desk at this point. They are now in recess and will be until we restart. There was a handful of bills that we tracked pretty closely. Many of them actually died, and happy to send a matrix out to everyone. AB 2286, which was the EV bill that had to do with vehicles above 10,000 pounds, is moving forward to the governor's desk. So it was probably one of the only bills that we followed that is moving forward. There is also a bill related to requiring Caltrans to include complete streets in all of their planning that is also moving forward. So those are the two bills that we tracked that are moving to the governor's desk. Other than that, that's kind of a quick overview of bills. There's also an update on the California Transportation Commission. They have appointed Jason Elliott to the commission. He previously served in the governor's office, so it may be a name you're familiar with. And he will now serve on the CTC.
And just maybe adding that, so we were actually in Sacramento last Wednesday, and so Lindy and I and Mark are actually making the rounds, just kind of preparing for our upcoming funding applications for SB1. So the guidelines got published, and applications are due in November, and so we're working with MTC and Caltrans to get the nominations that we need for the Solutions to Congested Corridor program. And so we'll be submitting for Innovate 680 for the northbound express lanes project, as well as some of the VMT mitigation. And then the other project that we are moving forward is the Trade Corridor Enhancement Program, and that is for I-680 State Route 4 Phase 4, which is the direct connector from northbound 680, actually, no, I'm sorry, southbound 680 to eastbound Highway 4. And so we're moving forward those two grant proposals and just, doing the legwork, making sure everyone's aware. We did meet with 3 CTC commissioners on the Innovate 680 project. They were actually very interested in our VMT mitigation program. And we met with Commissioner Bradshaw, Daryl Grisby, and then also Commissioner Howard. So all of those commissioners, or not Howard, Carl Gardino. And so they were really, really receptive to the project. They were really interested in the project just because Innovate 680 is actually the first project in the state to be approved with the VMT mitigation program. It's also one of the few projects in the state that actually has mitigated it completely fully. It might be the only project that has done that. And so I think we're in a really good position, I feel like, because it's a great opportunity for the state to promote the project relative to their goals and kind of where they're going relative to CAPTI, the Climate Action Plan for Transportation Infrastructure. And so it was really, really good meetings, but I think it's important that we all kind of really huddle on this and really support it, because MTC has to nominate it, which I think will get the nomination. I'm not too concerned about that. But that to be able to fully fund our ask, which is relatively like $92 million, we're actually going to split it into SCCP, which is a Solution to Congested Corridor, and then also an LPP competitive ask to get the ask on the SCCP down low enough to where it's competitive. And so we're combining both grant applications to going in November. And then for the TCEP, we're trying to get Caltrans to actually submit it on our behalf, because we don't want to have like multiple CCTA applications, because we won't probably get all of them if CCTA is on the list for all of them. And so it's a big, heavy ask, for Contra Costa County. I think the TCEP ask is $58 million. So, and so we want to we're just being really strategic in terms of how we're submitting it, who's submitting it. And so we're really pushing on Caltrans to submit the TCEP. That gives us more of a better chance to get that SCCP and TCEP. So that's what we're working on. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Any questions? Newell?
Yeah, Tim and Lindsay, thanks for those updates. To go back to the bill that's on the governor's desk regarding vehicles over 10,000, what's the final language in that? I mean, we were asking for some big changes in that, and I don't think we got them. And what is his thinking, and what can we do to convince him not to sign this at this point?
So I'm sure Tim might have thoughts as well, but we have joined some coalitions who've sent forward letters. We already had a letter of opposition, so we're just sort of reiterating that in coalition with others. We did ask for some potential amendments. We did not see those move forward. I will say, and there's some speculation here, but the DMV also put out some potential regulations related to heavy-duty and light-duty vehicles this week, which is an interesting move given that this bill is also on the governor's desk. So it's yet to be seen exactly what impact that might have, but it'd be interesting if the DMV is putting out regulations on full autonomy at the same time that the governor signs a bill that would require someone in the vehicle.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? No? We'll go to public comment. Is there any public comment on this item?
No public comment received, and I don't see any hands raised.
Great. All right, thank you. I now have, my papers are a little, mixed up here. Yeah, I got it. All right, so, no, we don't need a motion on that, no. Okay, next item is an action item presented by Hisham to discuss the overall approach and schedule for the development of the 2025 Measure J strategic plan. These are going off my screen.
Good morning, Vice Chair and committee members. My name is Hisham Raimi. I'm the Director of Programming at CCTA. I'm pleased to present this item. Today, we're asking you to approve the kickstart of the update to the strategic plan. It'll be called the 2025 Measure J Strategic Plan. The last one we adopted was in June 22, so this is about 2 years after your adoption of that plan. And let me move my slide. Here we go. All right, just as a quick reminder, we are in year 15 out of the 25 years Measure J. The measure is supposed to expire in 2034. And the expenditure plan guides how we spend our Measure J funds. As you know, it assigned funding to programs, about 57%, and 43% to projects, capital projects. And for the programs, they basically get a fixed percentage of our annual sales tax revenue based on what's written in the expenditure plan. On the project side, however, the 42.5% or the 43%, that pays for the capital project funding, it pays for the debt service on issued bonds, as well as the program management costs. So in the expenditure plan, when it was adopted, it did not really prioritize which projects to do first, how to pay for bond debt service, what to do if our revenues decline. That's why we do the strategic plan. It basically anticipates the funding needs and the availability for the next 5 to 7 years. And it establishes, in our case, it established the timing and the size of the bond issuance, which are now all complete, to meet the funding needs for the projects. The major outcome of the plan is the program of projects. That's what's included in Appendix A in the plan. It shows you which projects will be funded, how much in Measure J they will get, and in what year. And that's essential for the project sponsors to know. We update it every 2 to 3 years to basically assess our assumptions on revenue growth, debt service costs, cash flow needs, and so on. So the big picture, since we adopted the last plan, our revenues have been doing really well for the past 3 years. They exceeded what we were projecting 2 years ago. So just for the past fiscal years, we received $48 million more than what we were projecting. That's about 15% more in revenues than what we were thinking. And we will be, as Brian, you'll present in the next item, we will be proposing to refinance our 2015 bonds because we expect to save money on that, up to $6 million. In the past 2 years, we finished the 2 largest contracts we ever worked on, construction contracts, the 684 Interchange Phase 3 and the southbound 680 HOV projects. And over the next 3 years, as we look at the strategic plan, there will be a number of large projects that we will go into construction. So we're making good progress in getting them shovel-ready. You heard Tim talk about the applications we're putting in for the northbound 680 Express Lane, the 684 interchange, Phase 2A and 4, the I-80 San Pablo Dam Road interchange, as well as the 680 CARM, Coordinated Adaptive RAM Metering. We're also, in the past couple of years, have been successful in getting funding for several non-Measure J projects. You know, we got about $29 million to do 5 Safe Streets for All projects, 3 signal earmarks. We're working on the countywide smart signal projects, primarily funded with OBAG, and other projects as well. So these projects will be going into construction in the next 2 to 3 years during the window for this strategic plan, upcoming strategic plan. So today we're asking you, we will be presenting 4 factors that will shape this plan. They are the revenue forecast, which is the most important one. And then we will be talking about our programmatic construction reserve, as well as when we will issue the next call for projects for the TLC and PID bike project, PID bike program, as well as the cap that was imposed in 2007 on the overall consultant program management cost. So as I mentioned, you know, this chart shows you the what we were expecting in 2002, 2022, compared to what actually we got in the past 3 fiscal years. And we've been lucky, I guess, and we got more money than what we were anticipating. So with that, I will turn it to Brian to introduce Susie from HDL, who will talk about the forecast for this strategic plan. HDL is a reputable company that does our forecast. They're specialized in this type of work. So with that, I'll turn it to Brian.
Thank you very much, Hisham. First of all, I'm Brian Kelleher, CFO for CCTA. Thank you very much. One of the instrumental things I did early on, and when I started working with Hisham a number of years ago and projecting sales tax, is bring in HDL, not only to help us on our annual budgeting, but also on our forecasting model. And Susie Woodstock has been with HDL for a number of years. She is a finance professional as well that is now with HDL. And what they do for us is what they offer to a number of other cities as well. Many of you probably use HDL. It's the best way to do your budget for property taxes and sales tax as well. But what they do for us is they give us this detailed analysis of all the different categories and project out based on a number of different percentages. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Susie Woodstock from HDL to give us a presentation on where we are and how we're going to put this into the strategic plan through 2034. And as you know, it's a best guess. There are some market and economic trends, but again, we're in a political year, and you never know when the next housing crisis, other crisis that may come up. And so we'll have to make changes as we go forward. So with that, Susie, go ahead.
Thank you very much. I don't think I have slide control, so maybe next slide. Thank you. So I'm going to start with talking about the difference between your half-cent transaction tax and the regular point of sale transaction tax. So the rate across Contra Costa County would be 8.75. There are 3 transaction taxes. Of course, the CCTA is one of them at 0.5%. It is a tax on all sales, on all tangible property in the county, and it's allocated by where the goods are delivered or placed into use. So, of course, all the over-the-counter transactions applies, but it's different than the 1% Bradley Burns in that it matters what is shipped in and what is shipped out. Anything shipped in, does not matter where it comes from, will pay the transaction tax. Anything shipped out of the county will not. One of the big differences is autos and transportation. It does not matter where the dealership is located. It matters who in Contra Costa County will register a car into a county address. So that's what it means by placed into use. Again, all the over-the-counter transactions will pay it. It just has a little bit of a nuance between shipped in and shipped out. Okay, can we go to the next slide, please? Like I said, there are several other cities in the county that have additional transaction taxes. So the base rate in Contra Costa County would be 8.75, but here's a list of other agencies that have additional transaction taxes that only apply to their cities. Next slide, please. So the money flows a little differently. There's two ways to look at it. The state distributes cash on a monthly basis. They give advances. On a quarterly basis, they reconcile and give you an actual return of what happened in that quarter. But the cash that the state distributes can have old audit adjustments. It can have double payments. It can have missing payments. It's not always the actual sales trends. So for what we call the adjusted is where we take out all those anomalies and we're trying to look at the sales that occurred in each quarter or in each year. That way you can look at the trends versus just when the cash is distributed. So sometimes you can see that there'll be higher cash in a following quarter. It actually applies to a previous quarter. It's why you can have a difference between the finance books and this projection. Looking back over the last few years, there's a difference of $1 to $2 million for each of the years because of this, of the timing of when the cash is distributed. Okay, like Brian said, we look at things by industry category. We have these major industry categories. Here, we cannot talk about individual businesses because, of course, we do not want to give away their business information. So we talk in terms of major industry groups. We have several here. This is the standard. We break the whole state into these categories. You can see that your biggest slice is general consumer goods. Your second biggest slice is autos and transportation. Your third biggest slice is business and industry. I have some graphs that we're going to talk about each of those and how they're trending. The other one, the fourth biggest slice is restaurants and hotels, about 10.8% of your pie. I don't have a slide for that, but restaurants and hotels is one of the categories that continues to grow with rising menu prices. We did see some pullback in foot traffic. People still want to eat out, but with the rising menu prices, we're seeing a little bit of slowing in that category, and that is about 10% of your overall revenue. Of course, that went way up after the pandemic. Menu prices have been growing for the last few years, but we are starting to see that one finally right now start to slow down. Okay, so your biggest category, general consumer goods. What you'll notice on this graph in blue, where we're looking at the past years, is there's no dip. We had the pandemic. You'll see a dip in autos and transportation. You would have seen a big V dip for restaurants and hotels, but here you do not see a dip. And what happened is in 2019, AB 147 required out-of-state vendors to start reporting. It was phased in over a 6-quarter period, so it impacted fiscal years 1920 and 2021. It brought in all sorts of new revenue. Prior to AB 147, vendors that were completely out of state that were shipping into California were not remitting the sales tax on the items they were shipping unless they were over 500,000. You were expected as the user of those products to report that on your state income tax, which, you know, most people probably did not know that's what they were supposed to be doing. It was a question on like a TurboTax type thing. But as of 2019, the end of 2019, those vendors had to start remitting the tax. And on top of it, if you are a marketplace facilitator, allowing third-party smaller vendors to sell through your platform, you now had to start reporting on behalf of all those smaller vendors. It created a lot of new revenue into California. And of course, during these years where you see that highlighted 8.7%, that is pretty much all AB 147. 2021 and 21-22. Not only in 2021, we had the second half of the implementation of AB 147. We had the people shopping more and more online because of the pandemic. And we had the beginning of rising inflation. 21-22, we really had inflation impacting. That 8.1% in green, AB 147 was fully implemented. That was not influencing. That is growth from continued online spending. The surge in spending. People were willing to buy expensive stuff. The luxury brands were all really doing well. And that really outpaced what we expected. We thought there would be a kind of a high point after the pandemic and that we'd come back down and kind of go to normal. But you can see even after that peak in 2021, 22, we still went up another 8%. 22, 23, still positive. This is when we're starting to see the pullback. Really, calendar year 23 is when spending slowed down. People are still spending, but they are now making more cost-conscious choices. They are not spending on luxury anymore. They're looking for some off-price concepts. You can see yours is still positive. For some agencies, we separate online shopping and brick and mortar. The brick and mortar was negative for pretty much all of calendar year 23. It was the online shopping that is keeping your numbers positive. You can see going forward, we're looking at steady growth. We do not have a recessionary scenario in this. We expect to see pretty much modest, solid growth, nothing like we saw when we added in that AB 147, but continued growth throughout the rest of the Measure J. Okay, next, please. Another one here this is from UCLA Anderson. A few years ago, I had this in the presentation also. It was looking at UCLA Anderson's forecast was expecting that during the pandemic, we spent a lot on goods and we stopped spending on services because those were restricted. They were expecting that as we return to spending on services, that goods would drop off. And what this is showing is that, yes, we have increased our spending on services. This is starting in first quarter of 2022, but goods did not drop off. We continue to spend on goods as well as return to spending on services. This has kind of confounded some economists because they expected it had to slow somewhere else to start spending more, but people continue to spend. And you can see they've got that forecast out forward after 2024 to continue. Okay. So your second biggest category is autos and transportation. Autos and transportation took a big dip when everybody stayed home for a little bit. You can see the pullback in purchases in 1920. Your revenue went from about 19 million down to 17 million. We expected it to slowly return. And yet in 2021, it jumped 18.5%. It jumped 18.5% up to that 21 million because prices went up. We had a supply issue, which spiked demand and spiked prices. People were still willing to pay anything at this point. Again, they weren't traveling. If they were traveling, they were going to take a road trip and they wanted to take it in a nice car. The luxury brand prices went really high and people continued to buy them. What happened though was it was actually about 20% fewer cars were sold because we had supply issues. People were buying expensive cars way over MSRP, sight unseen, and yet and so revenues went way up. Again, for your autos and transportation, this is who in the county bought a car. It is not what dealerships sold a car. So this is what the residents within the county boundaries purchased and registered cars. So even after it went up that 18%, we thought, okay, the supply is starting to even out. The savings that everybody had is starting to be spent again. And yet in 21, 22, it went up another 9%. People continued to buy those luxury cars. They were willing to spend a lot on those high-priced vehicles. The prices hadn't come down. They are just now in 23, 24. You can see that first negative there, starting to see some reduction in the prices of vehicles. And of course, in 22, 23 is when we really started to see the supply start to level out again. Interest rates started to rise. That made a pullback in autos. This group contains used vehicles too. Used vehicles went way up because there was a supply issue. Now those prices are starting to come back down. So that 9.1%, again, we expected to come back down after that kind of surge of spending on luxury, and it just did not stop as quickly as we would have expected it to. You can see in the forecast, we do have it slowing. 23, 24 did end at the end of June. We will have the data for the last quarter of 23, 24 next week. So this is still preliminary, that minus 4.4, but for the first 3 quarters of the year, that is what we expected. We saw and expect to have this number be the final number. And then we have slow growth as the prices start to normalize. Of course, right now in 23, 24, and this beginning of 24, 25, interest rates are still high, and we are expecting them to go lower towards the end of the year. So people will pull back and wait on those purchases, hoping to have better interest rates. We've got 24, 25, and 25, 26 growing at only about 2%, and then back to a normal rate of about 4%. And the last of your 3 top industry groups is business and industry. Business and industry is an eclectic group. It does have the medical biotech group. It has manufacturing. It has agriculture. It has industry, and it has wineries for a while. There's other categories. Again, it's a big eclectic group. It traditionally grows, and you can see the outer years at about 3%. Interest rates can affect this with industries not making big equipment purchases when interest rates are higher. You can see it's still going strong again because of that mix, but we expect 24, 25 to have some slowing in it. And this is the last of my slide. I'll talk just a second on the next slide. So overall, like I said, you can see the red was the last set of projections. We had AB 147 that added a lot of additional revenue. We knew that it was coming. We didn't realize how much out-of-state revenue was going to be input into our revenue stream. We had very strong auto sales. We had very strong inflation. So all of those things are what drove this gap between the strategic plan of 2022 and the new baseline that we're showing here. I think I turn it back over to Brian or Hisham now.
I'll take it from here, Susie. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So as Susie mentioned, our new baseline here is shown in the black, solid black, and you know, it's higher than what we were projecting the 2022 strategic plan, $135 million over the life of the measure. But keep in mind that 48 million have already been realized out of that. That's just in the past 3 years. And then we asked HDL to bracket their projection with a conservative and an optimistic scenario just to give you options. And we feel like the baseline is the most realistic line to approve.
And Hisham, it's also the growth rate is slightly different, right?
As you can see from the slope of the red line and the black line, thank you. The black line has a slower growth rate. It's about 2.7% on average compared to 3.3% to what we had in the 2022 strategic plan. So this summarizes the forecast. In the last strategic plan, overall, we were expecting 2.58 billion in revenues. Now it's with the baseline, it's about 2.72 billion. And you can see, just for the sake of comparison, the conservative and the optimistic scenario. Even under the conservative scenario, we would still have about $44 million more than what we had in the last strategic plan.
But that's, we already realized 48, so that would actually,
Be a
going
decline.
forward, it's actually down 4.5.
Correct,
Okay.
yeah. As you can see from the bottom dotted line, that it's really a lower slope, yeah. Sorry, going the wrong direction. So with that, we are asking you to adopt the baseline scenario as a basis to develop the 2025 strategic plan, with the understanding in 2 years we will be coming back to you, or even sooner if economic conditions change significantly. That was one of the factors. We can talk about all the factors, and then you can ask us questions. The next factor is the programmatic construction reserves. These basically were, we started putting money in the construction reserve back in the 2013 strategic plan, because we had a large construction program with the Caldecott, Highway 4, and so on. So we wanted to have a backup plan in case our contingencies were not enough in the construction estimate. Since then, we've carried that reserve in the 2016, 2019, 2022 strategic plan. In the 2022 strategic plan, we had about $5 million total in reserve. And we ended up using it basically to settle the claim on the 684 Phase 3 interchange. Right now, what we're asking is your approval to replenish that reserve. We don't know what the amount would be at this point, but probably be in the range of $5 to $10 million. That's going to depend on the analysis we complete for the strategic plan.
Yeah, it says here for each sub-region. Is that based on the projects actually funded in that region?
That's right. So each sub-region, we anticipate to have projects going on in each sub-region in the next 3 years, like 80 San Pablo Dam Road in West County. In Central County, we will have 684. In Southwest, we will have I-680 CARM and so on. So we are recommending that we put some money aside in each sub-region's reserve.
And do you have a formula for that? Is there a certain
It will
percentage
have
based
to,
on?
yeah, we will be taking into consideration the sub-regional equity, the geographic, equity for each sub-region based on the expenditure plan when we recommend the numbers. And roughly, it's like 30% in Central, 30% in East. I think it's 18 and 23 between Southwest and West County.
Should we not be approving that once you have the numbers, rather than?
Yes, we will come back to you.
You're going to come back to us with those
Absolutely,
details?
yes.
Okay, I
But
just wanna
we're
make sure
trying
about that.
just to
Yep.
agree that you're okay with the concept of replenishing, the construction reserve. And then the next item is the TLC and ped bike programs. We had, since the start of Measure J, we had 2 cycles programmed basically in 2012 and 2016. And based on the last strategic plan, we recommended we defer the programming of the 3rd cycle. The reason for that was we were anticipating a tight cash flow capacity in 2023 and 2024. Luckily, that did not materialize because we had a lot higher revenues than what we were anticipating. So our cash flow is fine. We can continue to program the next cycle in 2025. So that's another factor. That was our safety valve. Whenever our cash flow drops, we have a control on when to issue the call for projects to manage that.
So you're recommending that not be
We're recommending that we move forward.
with program, it says
with-
recommends program the next, in
In
2025 is
Yeah.
when the expenditures start, or when the programming's done?
When the programming, I mean, we can start working now, issue the call for project, but the expenditures would take place in
Okay.
2025. And then the last item is the cap on the consultant program management cost. Back in 2007, as part of the first strategic plan, the board adopted a policy of imposing a 1.5% cap on how much to spend on consultant program management costs. That's basically whenever you spend money on items that are not specific to a project and benefits the entire program, like the strategic plan, for example, or doing the construction guide or the implementation procedure for the local agencies for Measure J projects. These benefit the entire program, so they get charged to that 1.5%. And that was I want to say that was based on the traditional way we did business in 2007 and before. A lot changed since then, and now we're administering, our own construction contracts. That started in 2010. Because of that, we had to develop policies, procedure. We have to develop a construction guide, updated frequently. We're more reliant on grant funding. Normally, up to the day you get the agreement approved for the grant funding, all that work is not reimbursable by the grant, so you need to cover it somehow. So we've been charging to the 1.5%. We're doing more multimodal, multi-jurisdictional projects. Innovate 680 is an example where it requires more coordination. We are doing more technology projects. These projects require a lot of research about the technology and so on. And as we move into CCTA 4.0, we do need to develop policies, procedures, implementation strategies. That all requires research. That requires doing, for example, a countywide data management plan, a countywide digital motions plan, the traffic management center concept of operations. So we are spending more money, and also in 2016 and 2020, we tried to pass a new measure, and unfortunately that didn't work out, but that did cost us, that did require more support from the consultants. So we are recommending, based on the trend lines and based on the projected work until the end of the measure, we are recommending that you increase the cap 2.5%. In terms of actual dollars, the 1.5% translates on average about $775,000 a year, and we've been spending about $1.2 million a year. Now, if you don't approve it, we will have to cut back future expenditures to about $250,000 a year, which will not allow us to do many of the stuff we want to do. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, questions? Paul?
Yeah, just on that last point. So you're saying we've been way less flexible with the 1.5% cap, and you need that flexibility now going forward to be able to respond to the changing needs, and that can't be resolved by hiring more people internally. Is that what you're saying?
I mean, part of the issue is you need specialized resources to some of the stuff we're doing that you're not going to get from hiring a person at the authority. So even with the hiring, I think we're doing more things. So we still need to do the prep work for that.
So you mentioned what the 1.5% was. What is the 2.5% equal?
It'll be, right now, we're averaging about 1.2 million a year.
12.2 million.
1.2, yeah.
1.2, okay, that's better.
Big difference. Yeah.
Okay. No?
But, sorry. Yeah, hey, Sean, thank you and everybody that's presented on this. One, I think the baseline is correct approach. That's what's kept us as a unique, successful agency. Our cash position is strong. We still have to look at all of this, and that's why I say the baseline is appropriate, because we are, at this point in time, this ends in 10 years. So, having the cash and all of those things that we need to close out, should that have to happen, I think that's a position we have to be realistic to. The 2.5% that Paul was just mentioning, that's really important we do that. No other agency leverages our base dollars to grant dollars compared to what we do. I mean, that's a high leverage, and it costs a lot. I mean, sometimes we have to pass up on proposals because it costs too much to put them in. And so I think that that's really important, but it's also what's built the agency. So, yeah, it's better to plan and budget versus, budget and then figure out how to pay for it later. So let's be realistic. We have the track record of doing it. I think it's good. But these are all technical things, and I think those are the good guide points. I just want to maybe say there's a high-level view of all of this, and I don't think we highlighted enough. And I'd like to suggest that maybe we look at it this way, and we make sure that the introduction of this, we are the regional transportation planning authority. Planning, right? That's our job. So when we do a plan like this, it needs to have the strength. It's not just little boxes and here's money and things like that. It has to, reinforce what our overall goal is. We as that transportation, that innovative agency, what it is we're planning for the future, and that this responds to that. And the way we allocate our dollars and things responds to that plan. We have transportation providers that are part of that complex network. And we've got to make sure, I think the MySeed is that we have that overall goal. And again, it's just to highlight it. Doesn't mean we're changing anything, but to highlight what our role, our responsibility is in the context of communicating back to our taxpayers to say, this is what we're planning, here's how we're using the money, and here's what we're achieving. So in that overall sense, I know this is the technical part, we need to kind of put our thumbprint on and say, yeah. I just want to make sure that we think about all those things, and that's part of our message, because ultimately that document there is the one that's going to be on the table when we go out for a new measure. So how it justifies itself, how it explains itself, and quite frankly, how it presents itself is important, that it's easily understood and our rationales in there are really clear. That's all. Otherwise, I agree with everything that was presented by staff.
I'm just going to add on to that, because I think, it's 2024. We're only 10 years away from the end of the measure. And I think we also have to look at, sort of a plan B. If we don't have a new measure done, effective at the end of 2034, how do you wrap certain things up, and where's that money coming from? And so I think not only do we have to have that vision in order to do another measure, but we also have to have, if we don't get a measure, what's the situation and how do we wrap things up, and where are the funds coming from to do that? So I think that will be important to do as we go forward on strategic plans as we get closer to that 2034 date as well. So I'll just add that. Any other questions? No? Okay. Is there any public comment, written or virtual?
There are no hands raised virtually, and I've received no written public comment.
Great.
I would move this item and to accept staff recommendations as presented.
Second. Thank you. Gonna have to start throwing things at somebody over there. Just making sure I get a second. It's usually my job doing the motions in the second, so I'm gonna do something different here. Jackie, can we have the roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Arnerich?
Aye.
Commissioner Fideli?
Aye.
Commissioner Hernandez-Thorpe? Aye. Vice Chair Nowak?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes unanimously with Chair Sauce absent.
Great, thank you. Next item is an action item presented by Brian Kelleher to discuss the development of a financing plan to refinance the 2015 A bonds. Brian.
Good morning, commissioners. Once again, it's Brian Kelleher, CFO for the agency. One of the exciting things I get to do is bring you good news stories every now and then. And one of the things that we had mentioned before is the backbone of CCTA and the success of CCTA has been the bonding program that started early on in Measure C. And through Measure J, we've used about 42.5% of our revenues that come in that's used for the bonding program. And every time we go out and we bond, there's usually a 10-year no call for the investors. We get good interest rates. Interest rates right now on the 2015 bonds, we're coming up on 2025. There's a principal and interest payment that comes up in March, so that gives us our 10-year call period, so we can start early in January to refinance this. But one of the things we need to do is get approval from you, the board, to go ahead and start the process and assemble a team. We need to find the lawyers, we need to find the underwriters, we need to find tax accountants and different things. And with that, we have used K&N. We have Melissa Schick here as well from K&N to represent it and help us answer any questions as we go through this. We've been using them in 2017. We did an RFP, we selected them. They helped us get a AAA rating with or a AAA rating with Fitch. We have a AA+ with S&P. And now is the opportunity with our interest rates. We have fixed rate bonds right now. They're about 5%. And so as we enter this time to refinance, you can get a lower interest rate, and we can have some savings in there. A very conservative, a very safe estimate based off of some of the things that we've seen from the banks right now is about $6 million, but as interest rates change, it could grow to 7 or 8. I don't want to put that out there, but it could also come down a little bit as well. But there is money on the table to be had between now and 2034. And what we're going to do over the next several months is develop a team, work with a number of individuals, come back and present, seek authorization from you to go ahead and do the bonding in early January, maybe February, maybe have it, right around that time frame. Make sure that we time the market to the point where we get the best achievable piece. So what we're doing today is seeking approval to start the process of selecting the team. And so with that, I'll turn it over to you. If you have any questions or any comments, I can answer them. If not, Melissa is here to help us, and they do a wonderful job supporting the authority.
Would the new bonds be structured similar to the current ones, 10-year?
That'd be nice.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I guess.
There is a cap. There is a cap in there that we have 42.5% to pay for the bonds. So, with any structure, you could pay more principal up front, get it paid off earlier. So there's a lot of different pieces to iron out. There's all the other bonds that we have in here. In the staff report, we have about $350 million outstanding. Probably about 26 million is going to be paid in March of next year, and probably 20 million of that is part of the 2015 bonds. And so we'll look at some of the other ones on the table, like 2017. We'll see what we can do to structure a deal. It's always about achieving lower interest rates and bringing you savings with no risk.
Yeah, we're not really, I guess the hope that the Fed reduces rates is probably already sort of factored into the longer term rates at this point.
Yes, and a lot of things could change with the election and all that other stuff. And so it could be even lower in December.
Okay, all right. Additional questions?
I really just have a comment, if that's okay. I think this is great timing. Probably our last opportunity to do this. And Melissa's team, Ryan, when you brought these folks in, they cleaned house and they did a great job. And I think we're in obviously by our ratings and everything, and our coverage is so good on this. These are easy bonds to sell. So, from my seat, full steam ahead. Make it happen.
Paul, you have your light on.
I would move it if Newell didn't. Yeah, I was ready to second,
Great.
but yeah.
Okay.
Here we go.
We have a motion. Oh, let's do public comment first. Do we have any written or?
No written public
Virtual?
comment and no virtual hands raised.
Okay, great. We have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Arnrich,
Aye.
Commissioner Fideli,
Aye.
Commissioner Hernandez-Thorpe,
Aye.
Vice Chair Noack.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes unanimously with Chair Sauce absent.
Great, thank you. Next item is an action item as well, presented by Jack Hall to discuss utilization of the fund exchange reserve and amendments with BEEP, I love that, for the Innovate 680 automated driving system and Bay Area mobility on demand projects.
I always say beep beep.
I know, I wasn't going to do that. That's just too much. Jack.
All right, thank you. Good morning, Vice Chair Nowak and committee members. My name is Jack Hall, the ITS Program Manager for CCTA. This item is to approve amending Agreement Number 589 and Agreement Number 591 with BEEP to provide autonomous shuttles and to extend the agreement termination dates using the Fund Exchange Reserve. The Rossmoor project is going well with all parties wanting to expand the service. Currently, the route is between the community center and the fitness center. The residents, Rossmoor staff, and BEEP would like to expand the service in Rossmoor. Since the launch on 7/22, there have been approximately 360 riders, and I've ridden or been with the shuttle 3 times since launch, and I've always had more than just one other rider. So it's, in my opinion, it's been successful. In order to provide a more reliable service, we need to add another vehicle. And then in Bishop Branch, we would also like to extend the agreement from the end of this year to July 31st, 2025. So with that, staff seeks approval of Resolution 2458P, which will utilize $183,200.04 in Fund Exchange Reserve funds for the ADS project. Approval of Resolution 2454P, which will utilize $443,391.69 in Fund Exchange Reserve funds for the MOD project. Authorization for the chair to execute Amendment Number 2 to Agreement Number 589 with BEEP in the amount of $183,200.04 and extend the agreement termination date from February 28th, 2025 to September 30, 2025. And Amendment Number 3 to Agreement Number 591 with BEEP in the amount of $443,391.69 to provide autonomous shuttles for demonstration projects and extend the agreement termination date from December 31st, 2024 to July 31st, 2025, and to allow the executive director or designee to make any non-substantive changes to the language. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Jack. So is the additional vehicle in Rossmoor to provide more frequency, or?
It's really for reliability more so.
Reliability.
So we're a part of what's called the Community of Practice, which is run by the FTA. It's a national program. I attend quarterly meetings. And throughout the entire United States, batteries are an issue with autonomous vehicles. We have experienced that at Rossmoor. The batteries, sometimes they will not take a charge, and it's a common problem in the United States. My understanding is a lot of the batteries are more reliable batteries are built outside of the United States. And actually, I just received a phone call yesterday that, so we're using vehicles from Local Motors, which went out of business, but then they were bought and repurposed by BEEP. And there's some engineers that have come up with a solution to the battery issue, so I'll be looking into that more today. So that's one of the issues. And then also, I mean, just mechanical, just like any transit agencies, sometimes the vehicles break down. There was one vehicle that I'm not a mechanic, but the steering rod or on one of the wheels broke. So they had to fix it. They had mechanics in there. So it's for the service.
It's for reliability, okay. And extending it till July 2025. If it's successful, I'm hoping we're thinking about this long-term, right? I mean, it's.
So yeah, I'm gonna kick that one.
This is like a 6-month.
Yeah, that's to Tim, and because.
That's a Tim question,
I mean,
huh?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're already thinking about the future. I think for Bishop Branch, you know, we met with Alex Marin to talk to him about, you know, what the opportunities are going to be to continue service after July. The other for Rossmoor, they spend approximately about $1 million per year on private transportation services within Rossmoor, and so we're kind of looking at that in terms of how we might want to be able to leverage that or provide better service. And so we're definitely thinking about the future and definitely extending. I will say though, there will be a need, like a transition to more of, as we continue to commercialize, we'll also have to like industrialize, and so, so we've been talking with and working with companies, like for example, Hold On, and so I was with Chair Armitage and Vice Chair Arnridge on a trip to,
Chair Arnridge
I
and
was,
Vice Chair
you
Arnridge.
said me twice.
oh, really? Sorry.
Chair.
Chair Armitage and Vice Chair Hernandez Thorpe. My apologies, my brain is
That's why I just do first names, it's so much easier.
Yeah, it's very much easier. So we were on this trip and we were actually evaluating more of an automotive grade shuttle. As Jack mentioned, one of the steering rods like broke on the locomotor shuttle. Like these shuttles are not automotive grade. They're very much pilot or prototypes, and so we're thinking not only about, the service, but we're also thinking about the form factor, and kind of where we're going with the form factor. And, we're anticipating that an automotive grade shuttle will be available probably sometime in 2026. And so I think there's a gap that's still going to need to be filled, from like mid 2025 until those shuttles become available. But I think one of the things we're going to need to figure out is just a sustainable revenue source, for the projects. And so hopefully we can find that, through Alex Marin, through Bishop Ranch and Sunset Development, and then also with Rossmore and get those sustainable revenues. And then the next step would be, form factor and vehicle.
Yeah. I just hate to see pilots that are successful not
Yeah.
be able to turn into non-pilots. I don't know what you call them, but non-pilots, because too many times we just see pilots and they have to either keep going as pilots or nothing happens. So I just want to make sure we're heading that direction as well. Other questions? You got lights on, so Lamar? Okay.
I would agree with everything you were commenting on, Sue. But what's really exciting, I think, in this case, that Rossmore, being a senior community, and with its average age, is amazing how receptive and how much enthusiasm there is for this project. And as Tim mentioned, they're already talking to us because
We're old like those people in Rossmore. I hate to
yeah,
break the
they're a little
news to
older,
you.
but yes, you're right. The reality is that they have a demand. We're trying to keep up with that, and we just didn't in the beginning have backup vehicles. And so this will provide that. And I'm sure we will probably come back as we figure out the exact timing on new vehicles, which are purpose-built automotive grade. And there's a huge difference. I was not aware of that until we went to some factories to see what the difference is. And it's night and day. So I think it's exciting. I would make a recommendation. We approve this and move forward.
Is that a motion or a recommendation?
That's a motion.
So I'll go to public comment though first. Is there any public comment?
No
Written
public
or
comment,
virtual?
no virtual or written.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Arnridge,
Aye.
Commissioner Fideli,
Aye.
Commissioner Hernandez Thorpe, Vice Chair Nowak.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously with Chair Sauce absent.
Okay, now according to mine, we're on to correspondence and communications. Is that right?
That's correct.
I thought there was more on the agenda, but, all right. We have no correspondence in the packet. Any commissioners, staff comments, commissioner comments? Paul?
Yeah, I just, a quick note, I noticed in the other committee happening today, planning, that there's an item dealing with RM3 monies going out to the BRT for San Pablo Avenue, and I'm just hoping that by the time that item gets to the full board, there may be some kind of contact link, something that I can use to publicize this in the East Bay and in West County, because it's so important to over there. So if we can all help to get word out about that, that $1 million will go further, a long way. Okay, thanks.
Okay, any other commissioner comments? No? Tim, staff?
Just two. Welcome to the new refurbished boardroom. I know it doesn't look like it changed much, but we've got a new floor, ceiling tiles, lighting, fresh coat of paint. And so we're actually new chairs, et cetera, for the boardroom. And then The suite is scheduled to be done at the end of September at the moment, so we're planning on moving back in probably somewhere around the time of like mid-October, most likely. The furniture is actually on the critical path, not the actual construction, and so we're waiting for the furniture to be delivered. And so we'll continue, you know, to be up in Suite 330, probably mid-October, potentially late October. But things are looking really good. Basically walls have been broken down and just, it looks very, very open. Happy to take you over there after the meeting if you like. And then the other thing I wanted to just mention is next Thursday, a week from today, September 12th, we're doing our preview of the Martinez project with the May Mobility, County May Mobility project. So so last night, I was actually, Jack Hall and I were actually at the City of Martinez City Council, giving them an update on the project. And that was actually done in partnership with Bill Churchill, the general manager of County Connection, and also Taylor Gigi with May Mobility. And so it was really well received. The city's very excited. And I will just emphasize that one of the really important parts of this project is the labor component. So we have ATU has been highly engaged. I've been talking with international, Bill's been talking with local. We've been training bus drivers to be safety attendants. We have 5 certified safety attendants, we call them autonomous vehicle operators, AVOs, that have been certified by Department of Motor Vehicles, DMV. Yesterday I was actually out there demoing the ride, and there was a bus driver getting certified as we were out there. So the vehicles are out there, they're roaming around, public is getting excited, and the project will be, so we were doing this preview on September 12th. The actual launch of the project will actually be on the 16th. And we'll have five vehicles, we have 5 drivers. And then we're looking for one more additional driver right now. We have to go through a whole candidate pool process with Transdev, who's the subcontractor to County Connection. And then once we go through the candidate pool process, we identify the drivers, then they go through a online training, and then we actually do training at Gomentum Station. You know, so again, another unique thing with Gomentum Station is the ability to train these bus drivers in a secured environment at Gomentum Station, which is a huge benefit. And then the third part of it is then taking them out on the real roads and actually doing the training. And so I've been, again, talking with ATU International. They have strongly emphasized their support for the project. I'm coordinating with them to see if they want to be at the event next Thursday. And they're already really interested in kind of working in how we can help use this project to kind of promote this transition nationally, which is really positive, and also like the workforce development programs that we're doing with May Mobility. So it's exciting, very exciting project. I think the labor component is really, really key. I know the authority board is very committed to labor. I know the city council is very committed to labor, and I think this project is a good example of that in terms of demonstrating that transition of labor into this space. And yeah, and so September 12th.
What time is it?
Hope to see you there. It's at 10 a.m.?
Yeah, so the event starts at 10 a.m. with speakers and refreshments, and then 11 a.m. we're actually doing demo rides. And please feel free to invite your councils. It's not a public event, but we are happy to accommodate anyone who's interested in attending.
Because Transpac is at 9.
It
so my
is.
job as chair is to get the meeting over by 9:45.
And we've been coordinating
So we
around
can-
that. Yeah, we're
yes.
actually
No, I
hoping to
just
make
got
your
the word
agenda a little
yesterday.
smaller.
Could I run a meeting that fast? Not a problem. I
I'm
can
glad
do
it
that.
reached you.
I got that. Okay. All right. Great.
Jim, if I could just add, I mean, are those jobs for bus drivers, retired bus drivers?
No, they're active bus
So
drivers.
it will be just part of an optional job pool for ATU folks to go to?
Yes, it's really cool. And so what we did is Transdev basically sent out like kind of a recruitment notice within their labor pool. And then people volunteer to do it. And because so the way the hours of operations will work and the way the use case works is the hours of operations, because it's labor, we have to pay them an 8-hour shift, so And so it goes from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. And then from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. will be the county hospital use case. And so that'll actually be servicing county hospital in between like the VA, Kaiser, county hospital, Safeway, Walgreens, help fill prescriptions, based on all the data we got from the Contra Costa County Health Services. And then from 6 to 10 will be the nighttime kind of open to the public part of the service. That you'll be able to book it through an app. And so the way Maine Mobility works is it's very much a public transportation service where you've got these dedicated stops, so like Safeway, Amtrak station, downtown, that people have to walk to, and then the vehicle. So if you go to the app, you say, I want to go from Amtrak Martinez downtown station to, say, the Safeway or to my home. Then you just go from point A to point B, and it's a point-to-point system within that service area. So it's not like fixed route where you're having to stop at all the different routes. So you have a number of I think there's 33 stops within the service area, and then they go point to point within that service area. So.
Cool. Okay. Great. Well, if there's nothing more, that concludes our meeting, and the meeting's adjourned at 9:52. So thank you very much.